What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Optimist Fantasy Football Channel. I am Nate Palvote. Next to me is my guest co-host for today. You might remember him from last week, Mr. Keith Fleming from Fantasy and Frames. We are here to take your questions for the next right around an hour. We're here to help you win your fantasy football leagues. We're help you win money in DFS, lock in some good bets, make some good trades. This is just an hour for fantasy football. Keith, it's week 8. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. My fantasy football season-long teams are not somebody who invested heavily in Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, and Brandon Ayuk. It's been a tough one, but that's why I play DFS, my man, and why I'm moving further and further away from season-long.
Yeah, I just got off of our DFS show with Mike Reedy. DFS is such a fun way to mix it up. Like, I'm always going to do my season long. I've got my home league. I'm in 20 something leagues, right?
Oh, but no, I can't. Those days are over for me, man. That's too many. I can't.
I'm getting ready to trim back, but I'll always stay in those. I'm in with friends and like coworkers and industry people, just people I want to be around. But like DFS,
you want to talk smack to them when you beat them, right?
Yeah,
like that's what those season longs are for.
I do. We've got our first question coming in. We've got Adam over here on YouTube. Keith, he wants to know, with the T. Higgins news of the injury, would you trade Higgins and Kyler for Jaden Reed? He's got Jordan Love right now. If you guys did not hear, T. Higgins came up with a hamstring injury, I believe, today in practice. He is now questionable for Sunday. Keith, would you make this move?
I mean, I hate to always be this guy, but I kind of need to know what his, the rest of his roster looks like. If it's not a problem to lose, Kyler, like if you're okay at QB, I have no problems with it. The only thing about Jaden Reed is that he seems to be boom or bust, even though he is the Packers wide receiver that obviously is the most consistently targeted. They're kind of one of those offenses that they just don't seem to have an alpha share, to where with Higgins, something happened to Chase. I mean, goodness gracious, he'd be getting 10, 15 targets a game, and he gets 6 to 10 anyway with Jamar Chase. So it just kind of depends. I mean, I honestly, I would rather have T. Higgins than Kyler just in a vacuum than Jaden Reed. But if you're good at QB and you're worried about maybe the next few weeks, if he lingers with the hamstring, I don't hate the trade either.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. It does depend a lot on what you need on your roster. Even with the Higgins injury, I mean, we see this every season. He misses a couple of games. It's nothing new. He missed the first 2 games this season. I'm not that worried about it. Again, he's questionable. He's not doubtful. I think he plays this weekend. And to your point, Jaden Reed has been so streaky. He's had 1 game with 8 targets. He had 6 targets 2 games in a row, weeks 5 and week 6. Then against Houston last week, in a game where he should have, I mean, in theory, if you look at the teams, you look at the matchup, he should have seen more than just 4 targets. He walked away from that London game, 2 catches, 10 yards. He's only got the 3 touchdowns on the season through 7 games. And this is a guy who, I mean, if we're being honest, those are the weeks when he's been fantasy relevant, is when he scores. You're talking about, it's an offense where they're spreading it around. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs. They're all getting targets, right?
Yep.
So I wouldn't make this deal. I know we're all worried about, is Kyler Murray going to show up now that the new Call of Duty dropped today? But in all seriousness, I think he will. And I just wouldn't make this deal. I don't think your team gets better. I think at best you stay the same, and at worst you get worse. Now Adam's got another question here. He wants to know, Chase Brown or J.K. Dobbins rest of season. Keith?
I mean, in a vacuum, again, J.K. Dobbins. I'm really high on Chase Brown, but it's just the fact that if you're looking at volume, which is what I'm always looking for in these situations, Dobbins has been the clear lead back for the Chargers. I understand that the last couple of weeks have not been great, but it's also I don't know what happened Monday, but overall, I really like this Chargers offensive line. And I think that as Herbert gets healthy, that's going to take pressure off of Dobbins, because he has been seeing a lot of defenders in the box, because teams know that's what the Chargers want to do. They're missing Quentin Johnson, which I think, believe it or not, who would have thought that last year, but that played a big role kind of in the struggles. But I'm very high on Chase Brown. I'm wrong. I really like his talent and stuff, but just to me, if one guy's getting 65, 70% of the snaps, 80% of the carries compared to Chase Brown, who's more like a 50-50 split, I'm always going to go with the guy just getting more carries. And to be honest, again, the Chargers have a really good offensive line when it's healthy. So I would say that.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I liked Chase Brown. I don't have anything against Chase Brown. But Chase Brown is in a backfield, like it or not, with Zach Moss. And now he's seeing more carries, but also this is an offense that doesn't use the running backs as much or in the way that we're going to see J.K. Dobbins used in Los Angeles. This is a run-forward offense. So for me, it's going to be J.K. Dobbins rest of the way. So I think we're in agreement here. Nick, the kick over on YouTube, is Bucky for Rico worth it? By the way, my RB2 is Mason, and I have Jonathan Brooks. The first thing I'll say about this, don't hang your hat on Jonathan Brooks being even remotely fantasy relevant at any point this season. He's really good. He is someone you should have in Dynasty. He will take over this offense next season. But this team is so bad, there's no reason to roll Brooks out. If you've got him in season long, you should drop him. He's a roster clogger. He's taking up a bench spot.
And Hubbard's been great to on top of that. So why not just put the miles on Hubbard and save him for next year, hopefully when things are better for the Panthers.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason. This is a team that's going to be in the market for a quarterback. I mean, this might be where Shedeur Sanders ends up if he truly is going to be the first quarterback off the board in the draft, which it sounds like he's likely to be.
Deion's like, I'm not letting that happen. Hell no.
Hell no. Unless Deion takes over as the head coach. I mean, hey.
Now we're talking. Yeah. No, I could definitely see that.
I would love that because then CU tickets would get cheaper. The stadium's 15 minutes up the road from me, and I can't afford to go to a game now.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a bummer. But now let's get back to the question at hand here. Bucky Irving for Rico Dowdle. I say yes.
I mean, is it a full PPR league would be the only hesitation I would have, but I agree, like in a vacuum, just like, I don't know how much longer they can keep doing this with Rachaad White. There's now two better running backs on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers than Rachaad White, and why they still insist on getting him touches is beyond me. But I think the big news is Bucky's probably the best pass catching back, I believe, out of those three. And now no, Godwin the rest of the season, Mike Evans for at least a few weeks. And Tampa's actually ran the ball really well this year. It's been one of kind of the surprises is they went from a team last year that couldn't run the ball to this year, like they're having like 150 yards per game. You'd have to assume they're going to lean on that a lot more with the issues with the receiver and ask those guys to catch more passes, which again, they can all do. Rachaad White's a good pass catching back too. So, and also just the offense is much better, right? Which, more likely touchdowns and stuff. Again, if it's a full PPR, it's closer because Rico's getting a bigger share and he's also a pass catching back as well. But I think I'd still lean, Bucky no matter what the format because Tampa's offense is just so much better than Dallas's.
Yeah, he dropped in here. It is full PPR, but he says he's going to do it. And I think we agree that that's the right call. We've got Jason Quinn popping in over there on X. Guys, if you're watching us on X, you can comment and we can see it now. They fixed that whole bug 2 months ago.
Awesome, dude. I hated it.
I know. I hated it too. So if you've got questions over there on Twitter, please drop them in here and we will get to them. Jason, he's got Deontay Johnson, who is out this week. Would you add Pop Douglas, Ricky Pearsall, Dontavian Wicks, Braylon Allen? He's got Brees. So which one would you add as a depth piece? It's half PPR. For me, it's Ricky Pearsall.
I'm Pop Douglas all the way. You look at it, he is kind of one of the more underrated guys right now in fantasy that I know he's only been playing for a year and a half. Every game that he's seen 7 targets in his career, he scored 10 points or more in PPR leagues. I know this is half PPR, but we saw the first week, like what the addition of May was. He had like 6 for 96 and a touchdown. I was disappointed with his performance last week. Then you find out, I think he was sick or something during the game so I think that played a role. And I just think that he's going to be like the number one target with Hunter Henry and an offense with a quarterback that's pretty good and a team that's going to be down a lot. So they're going to be throwing to where I just think consistently week in and week out, you can count on him, especially for like buys and stuff to hopefully get you, 6 to 12 points every week. And if everything goes great and say Drake May really takes off, he could end up actually being like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 the rest of the year. So I think he's I think Purcell has by far the most upside of those guys with just what's going on in San Francisco. But I think DeMario Douglas should be owned in all leagues that are PPR or half PPR.
You're not. I like Pop Douglas. I really do like Pop Douglas, and I like him in this offense. I'm looking at the Ricky Pearsall situation right now and what's going on in San Francisco. We don't know what's going on with Juwan Jennings. He was questionable earlier in the week. He may not play. Debo coming off a pneumonia. He's trending towards playing, but I mean, anything could happen. You know, that's a serious illness he's coming off of, and he's got to be pretty taxed.
And if you're a Niner this year, it's going to go bad. So probably not a good idea to push it with what's been going on.
Right, exactly. And then you've got Kittle, who's dinged up. Pearsall was a first-round pick. In watching him at the Senior Bowl, it was very clear that he's one of the best route runners in this class. I would venture to say that he might be one of the smartest receivers in this wide receiver class, just the way that he adapts on the field and learns things. The reason I'm leaning him is because I think that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, he's going to earn a pretty big role in this offense. I think he overtakes Juwan Jennings. I think he basically becomes the wide receiver 2 behind Debo with Brandon Ayuk done for the season. And if Kittle's dinged up, he becomes the second target. We don't know when McCaffrey's coming back. We're hearing chatter he's going to be back after the bye, but we don't know that for sure.
I think I said last week, I think he's done. Like done.
I think he's Achilles tendonitis.
It's bad.
That's
real bad.
That's real bad. I guess we'll see what happens with CMC. I'm okay either way. You Pop Douglas, Ricky Pearsall. I think they're both good pickups. I think Pearsall's upside is a little bit higher, but Douglas is going to be more consistent rest of season.
Yeah.
So Jason's got another question here. He needs one. He needs one wide receiver, one flex, and a tight end out of this group. We have got JSN, Tank Bigsby, Bucky Irving, Jake Ferguson, and Kyle Pitts. Who are you starting out of this group? We got one wide receiver, one flex, one tight end.
I'm assuming he means just a flex and tight end. I don't even see a wide receiver.
We got JSN in there.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, well, if we're picking one wide receiver, then I'll go ahead and pick JSN. Tank Bigsby to me is the automatic out of this. Like it looks like they're moving to where he's the back. He got most of the red zone carries last week. And I'm still mad that I was all over him last year. And this year I don't have him on any best ball rosters. That's on me. And then after that, I think I'd have to lean, probably Pitts. If you just look, he had, I think, his best game of the year versus Tampa a few weeks ago. Tampa has had real issues with tight ends. It would either be Pitts or Bucky Irving, because, again, if you think that Tampa Bay is really going to lean into the run, the only issue is the Falcons. My Falcons, they actually are good versus stopping the run. We do, though, have issue with pass catching back. So he could have a big game in a sense where, he has like 4 or 5 receptions. I believe we're giving up almost 5 receptions to running backs per game.
Yep. Yeah. For me, it's going to be Bucky Irving, and then Kyle Pitts. I think those are Bigsby and Kyle Pitts. Pitts last week, he had 9 targets, 7 catches, 65 yards. Still he's got the 1 touchdown in week 1, but it looks like this tight end grouping in the league here is starting to actually kind of show up a little bit. The situation's getting
freaking time. Jesus.
It's about freaking time, man. Now, if only Sam Laporta could have more than a 1-catch breakout.
There's one tight end in standard leagues averaging 10 points per game, and half PPR, there's 2.
Yeah. No, it's bad. It's really bad. Now, Jacob Ander over here on YouTube wants to know, if Daniels is out, should I roll with Dak or drop him for Geno? Ooh, this is close for me, but I'm probably dropping Dak for Geno.
I 100% agree. Geno, like, why is Geno available in all these leagues? Like, I picked him up in a league that I had Jaden Daniels and Brock Purdy because I just didn't want anybody else to get him. He's one of the top quarterbacks across the board. I mean, obviously we'd like a few more touchdowns, and he has rushing upside. Like, Geno's actually running a good bit this year too. And I think that Buffalo, like, they're gonna, I know Buffalo typically you run the ball on them, but that's not Seattle's offense. Like, if you look, no matter who they played, they're flinging it. I just think Geno's got such a higher floor and, around the same ceiling, I think, as well.
Geno's QB7 right now on the season.
Great.
Yeah.
Man.
Dak Prescott isn't in the top 17. So that'll tell you what you need to know. Where is Dak? Dak is QB 26. That's
Right there,
not going to
probably with
change.
Mahomes.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's the move I'd make here. He's got another question for us. This one is in a PPR league. Are you starting Chuba Hubbard or Rachaad White this week?
Hubbard by a mile. Again, one of the most efficient backs in the NFL. I agree with you that, like, I was very high on Jonathan Brooks. I have him everywhere, and there's no incentive for them to play him. Like, why would you get a guy that is this highly talented injured when you're 1-7 or whatever they are, and it's not going to get any better? They're going to lean on him with Bryce playing. Obviously. And I mean, even if you look week 1, he had a decent game with Bryce doing nothing. I think same thing week 2. So I'm going to go with Hubbard, who's going to get a lot more volume too. He's not sharing carries with 2 other backs, which now White is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like you said, Chuba's been really good. Better than expected. Better than I thought he was going to be this year.
He'll
We've
get
got
paid, I
Optimus
think, this offseason. Oh, it's Kevin.
He better. Optimus' own Kevin Tompkins. His Week 9 waivers a week ahead is live on the site, guys. So go over there and check that out. He's got guys that you want to grab now before everyone's grabbing them next week. And he's not wrong. Rachaad White is fancy JD McKissick, and then he just, went ahead and left. Tyler
Well, tell him I'll see him at 9 p.m. for a DFS show tonight on Fantasy.
Oh, I will. Tyler Sperry here. He wants to know Dell, Bateman, Shakir, or Coleman. We're going to assume PPR here. For me, it's going to be Rashad Bateman this week.
Is Flowers, what is it? Is he? I know he hadn't practiced yesterday. Did he practice today?
I have not seen. I've been buried down here.
Because if Bateman, if Flowers is out, I think Bateman is potentially like a top 12 wide receiver this week. I mean, if you look what he's been doing, it's phenomenal. He had another guy I was really high on like 3 years ago. Was just like, well, missed on that one. And then all of a sudden he's looking pretty good. And Lamar right now is just on another level. And this Ravens offense is on another level. I was writing an article today. They've scored 141 points in their last 4 games. And again, if Flowers is out, that means that Bateman is going to see a monster target share. And he's put up a lot of double-digit games, seeing like 4 or 5 targets. So love Bateman, again, against a really bad secondary too. So
yeah, I love Bateman. Zay Flowers is questionable today. Or he's listed as questionable. He was limited in practice today.
No, he did at least practice. So okay.
He at least practiced.
Yeah.
Even though I still think I trust Bateman over the rest of this group. Maybe you could talk me into Khalil Shakir, but you're not going to talk me into Keon Coleman. You're not going to talk me into Tank Dell.
I am fascinated to see what Coleman does, though, because I know it was only 1 week, but it looked like Cooper actually opened things up for Coleman, which I'm not saying play him this week, but if you have Coleman, like, be patient, because we could be in like 2-3 weeks going, oh man, Amari Cooper has opened things up for Keon Coleman to be like a real contributor week in, week out.
Well, it's entirely possible. I want to, like you're saying, like I want to see what happens this week.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. He's got one more question. Same league. He wants to know Pop Douglas or Ricky Pearsall. Which one are you starting?
I mean, again, I like Douglas just because I think he's got a higher floor. But I like both of these. I would say it depends, though, on the matchup. Like when we talk about this, I know last week that it's like if it's a matchup you think is going to be close, and if you just get, the expected points from all your guys, you're going to get the dub. I would definitely go with Douglas. If you need a home run and you know that, like, say you need somebody to really outperform their projection, that's where I would go with Purcell in this matchup.
I'm with you on that, especially they're playing Dallas, which you would think like, oh, Dallas hasn't been great. San Francisco's going to roll over them, but this isn't the San Francisco team we saw through the first 3 or 4 weeks. They're just not simply as good. They're having a hard time beating teams. They lost to Kansas City in a game they probably should have won. They're at home with Dallas. I feel like this is a game where San Francisco is just going to try and put up as many freaking points as they possibly can. Dallas can put up a lot of points when they need to. This might be a shootout game. And if it is, I like Purcell a lot. If it doesn't turn into a shootout game, Pop Douglas is the play. So he's probably going to be the safer option. That's how you should probably be weighing this here. We've got Chris Robin over there on Facebook, Mr. Detroit Beastie popping in. What's up, buddy? It's always a pleasure to see you popping into the chat, my friend. We've got Chicken Wing on YouTube wants to know Pearsall or Jalen McMillan for his flex slot.
I would lean McMillan. It's because I'm so high on him just in general, and I think that he is the wide receiver that Tampa is going to try to make their alpha just to bridge until Evans comes back in a few weeks. Evans had 2 touchdowns versus my Atlanta Falcons. They struggle with these big athletic guys. Look at DK Metcalf last week, had 99 yards and a touchdown. And we don't get pressure is the issue. McMillan is a very good down the field receiver. Baker's really cooking. And I do expect that game to be a shootout, even with Tampa missing their wide receivers, because our Falcons defense is not very good. And I just saw that Simmons is out as well, which really sucks for us.
Oh, you know what? I did see that earlier. I'm going to go into my rankings and change things up a little bit without Simmons in there. All right, we're going to move on to Stephen McMahon over here on X. Stephen, thanks for tuning in. We'd love to see it. Hey, chaps, wasted my waiver on Jennings. Chris Olave, D-Hop, and Keenan Allen are available. Who would you take over Jennings rest of season? Ooh, Olave's probably the only one I would take over Jennings.
When is Olave coming back? Like, I thought
he's
that
active.
was
he cleared protocol.
Wow.
Yeah, he's playing this weekend.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that, like, I would just be careful dropping Jennings, because if you look how effective he's been in this Niners offense, and the fact that Ayuk's out, and they used him in that IU, you kind of roll a lot early this season and last season. I don't necessarily think you waste it. I understand if you have to have a spot and he's questionable play this week, you got to do what you got to do. And then at that point, I probably would lean Hopkins, just because maybe that turns into what Kansas City needs. Like, he's not going to be the Hopkins, obviously, of what we saw in years past, but he will be the best wide receiver on the Chiefs team. And I do think that he can still get open. And obviously we know Patrick Mahomes is, better than what his fantasy and stuff has shown this year.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's playing good real football. He's just not playing good fantasy football. He's
basically doing the Tom Brady impersonation from the first Patriots 3-peat or 3 Super Bowls. It's like rely on the defense, make plays.
All right, let's move on here. Nick the Kick wants to know, this is just a straight up football question here. Thoughts on the Rams possibly winning their division? Not only do I think it's possible, Keith, I think it's more likely than not to happen if Puka and Cooper Kupp stay healthy. That Rams team looked like a different team last night. They looked like the best team in the NFC.
I hope that you're right, because 2 weeks ago, I placed a wager on them at 33-1 to win the division, because I was looking at it with the Niners season on fire. I was hoping Seattle was going to lose to Atlanta, making, them basically at 500. And I mean, I'm with you. Like, that division is there. That's why I was so surprised for like the Stafford and the Kupp rumors, because I'm like, look, you're getting your guys back and the division is just a mess. Like, you're not out of this. We've seen this with the Bengals and some other teams in recent years. Similar situation, right? Like, where just some of their key pieces were not healthy. And then once that offense got rolling, I mean, you look at Kyron, those 2 receivers, and if the defense can just play okay, which they should get better. McVay's a great coach. I'm with you. I actually think that that's a team that everybody in the NFC would be terrified if they sneak into the playoffs, because they could beat any of those teams.
Yeah, well, this offense Puka Nacua looked like he was on a different freaking planet last night. They were talking about, he's going to be on a snap count. He's going to be limited.
Yeah, that screwed me. Thanks, Adam Schefter. I didn't play him because of that.
I only have him in one league. The one league that I do have him in, I played him. Obviously went very well. I was roughly 30 spots ahead of consensus on him in my rankings this week, and people were laughing at me.
Good for
you.
And
yeah, I had him at wide receiver.
I talked to you last night, I probably would have played him. So, but
you probably should have.
I should. I mean, it's a league I have receivers, but it's just Schefter's text. I was like, I'm not going through that crap where a guy plays like 15 snaps and.
What I've learned this season, because I sat Kenneth Walker a couple weeks ago. So he's sick and might be on a pitch count or whatever, and I sat him and then he went off. So if these guys are deemed healthy enough by the organization to play, they're going to be on a full workload unless the coach tells us. Yeah, play your guys. If the team's playing them, you should be playing them. We've got Tyler Spear with another question. Would you start Ricky Pearsall over Rashad Bateman? I would not. Would you?
No. I mean, Bateman, we know what he's been doing even with Flowers in the lineup, and say Flowers is just limited slightly. It just raises his ceiling, and he's been making big plays, and they're playing a defense that has given up quite a few in Cleveland over the recent weeks.
Yeah, no, it's Bateman. There will be a time when it's Purcell over Bateman, but it's not right now. I mean, it might be next week. Who knows? We've got MVM, me, Vale, Madre dropping in here on YouTube. Should I trade Jonathan Taylor and tank Bigsby for Jacobs and Debo? Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, I shake my head, but I don't know if he's like desperate for wide receiver. If that's the case, I would try to get somebody better than Debo, and I would not give away two backs that, in my opinion, could be top 10 backs the rest of the way. Jonathan Taylor is going to feast. Remember, Shane Steichen is maybe the best run designer in the NFL. Look what Zach Moss and other guys have done. And then again, I'm really high on Bigsby the rest of the year as well. So I would trade one if you're desperate for wide receiver, like maybe, Bigsby for Debo potentially, but I would definitely not give up both of those guys there's very few wide receivers in general.
Right. So, okay, Jonathan Taylor, here's my thing with him is that I was really down on him because of Anthony Richardson, but Anthony Richardson we don't generally cuss on this show, but Anthony Richardson has been ass. All right. He has not been good. He is Tim Tebow light. He's got the rushing ability and the physical skill that Tim Tebow had, but he can't throw. And Tim Tebow couldn't really throw either, but I would take Tim Tebow's arm over Anthony Richardson's arm because at least on the short stuff,
he's just really inaccurate, which is the issue. And they're trying to make him I love Steichen. I don't understand what they're doing with him. To me, they're not doing him any favors either with kind of like what they're designing and trying to do.
Well, he's trying to fit him into the Jalen Hurts bubble because he did so well with Jalen Hurts, but he's not Jalen Hurts. He has some of the attributes that Jalen Hurts has. He can move around with his legs. He's agile. He can get himself out of trouble, and he can huck the ball. That's where it ends. He's not accurate. Joe Milton, the big knock on him, he's Anthony Richardson, but he's not accurate. Joe Milton, Patriots' third-string quarterback, I will tell you right now, is more accurate of a passer than Anthony Richardson with the same athletic set. But he's on a team that understands you can't win long-term with this guy.
Why would you not go to Flacco? Because another thing people forget about Richardson is he's not been playing QB that long. I actually think Richardson still has a chance to be good, but they're throwing him to the fire in this situation, trying to learn why your team, by the way, is in playoff contention. To me, let him learn behind Flacco. And I think it would be so beneficial to him. I really do, instead of just, forcing him into a situation where we've seen it with Bryce and all these other guys. They lose their confidence and then they're done.
Yes. He's definitely fits into that category for me. Josh Rosen's guy, I think, fits into that category. That dude had no business starting his first season.
Yep.
He was a really good quarterback.
Yep,
in a really bad system.
Yep.
We're going to pop over here to Chris Robin. The master of DFS has a question for us, Keith. Demario Douglas, Josh Downs, Troy Franklin, and Ricky Pearsall in Superflex. He needs to start too. Who do you want to fire up? It is PPR.
Man, I think, I can't believe I'm saying this with how big I've been on Demario Douglas, but I think Franklin is actually the best play this week out of these four with the terrible news about Josh Reynolds. And on top of that, he had not seen, I believe it was more than 40% of the routes until the last 2 weeks. He's all of a sudden running a bunch of routes. He's had back-to-back double-digit games. And then, oh, by the way, the Carolina Panthers give up 40-yard plays like it's, Christmas. I mean, it is. The Panthers defense is all-time bad. I wrote in the DFS article, Fan Six Pack today, that I never thought I'd be recommending a double stack of Broncos, but any team playing the Panthers is a really good situation. He's going to be the number one target. So for me, it's him. And then where would you go for yourself? Or do you agree? Or where?
No, I agree with Franklin. Bo Nix is my favorite low cost quarterback in DFS this week,
especially with rushing upside. Yep, I'm with you.
Exactly. I think so. For my second one here, we got Franklin. Probably go Pop Douglas.
Yeah, just go safe, right?
Yeah, if you're going to go with Franklin, go with the safer option of the other three, and it's going to be Pop Douglas for sure.
Now, if Flacco is playing, I'd be all over Downs, but unfortunately, Richardson is.
No, that's back to that point. I think they need to at some point, Flacco's going to start, and when that happens, Jonathan Taylor is going to blow up again. So, like you said, they're in playoff contention. They have to think about that, and Anthony Richardson doesn't get you there.
Nope,
all right, we're going to pop over here to Conscious Machine 413 over on YouTube. Sutton, Watson, Otten, full PPR, 12 team. He needs to flex 2 of these guys. For me, it's going to be Otten and Sutton.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Otten is if you have Cade Otten right now, congratulations. You kind of want a lottery ticket because we saw last week, a significant increase in targets anyway. But by the way, he's had a red zone target in 6 straight games. After the first 2 weeks, he's averaging like almost 7 targets. And again, this was before losing Godwin and Evans for, at least both of them for a few games. And the Falcons, again, they don't get pressure, meaning that Otten's actually going to be able to run a little bit deeper routes than he normally does. So I love Cade Otten this week. And I'm with you. Like Christian Watson, it just, again, that Packers, it's so infuriating. Like really good offense, but outside of Jordan Love, it's hard to tell what wide receiver is going to eat.
Well, and Christian Watson just seems to be like, I don't know. He's not the guy who's going to see any sort of significant volume in that offense for whatever reason.
He's like Jameson Williams for the Packers, basically, where it's like he might have 3 targets. It could be 2 for 100 and a touchdown, or it could be 3 targets and he has nothing.
Yes. Conscious Machine also dropping this comment, RIP Tua. I don't know.
I thought he was cleared.
He was cleared. I just Googled it. Everything's fine.
Okay. Don't scare me like that, dude. Because I
know it scared me too when I saw it. It's like, oh no, what happened? So if you guys aren't aware, he cleared concussion protocol. He is starting, like Tyreek Hill said, fire up the effing band. And he was saying that he said, fantasy managers, fire up the band.
Tyreek has scored 25 points or more in 10 of the last 18 Tua starts. Devon A-Chain, when he has 10 carries with Tua starting, is averaging over 26 points per game. Both of them are extreme values in DFS on DraftKings this week. Like they're underpriced. I think Hill's $7K and A-Chain's like 6,200. So I will have both of them in a lot of lineups.
Hill's 7 flat on DraftKings.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I'm all over.
Yeah,
I'm all over Tyreek Hill this week. MVM dropping back in here wants to know trade Jonathan Taylor for, I'm assuming, Justice Hill. Oh, hurting a receiver, lost Nico. So for Tyreek Hill, I would trade Jonathan Taylor for Tyreek Hill. There's so much more upside there.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that if there's a receiver that's a little bit safer, only because I worry about Tua and getting hit, and you give up Taylor, and then, next thing you know, you're back in the shit show. The crap show that's been the Dolphins passing game. But I mean, yes, I would accept that trade. But if they have another stud receiver that's attached to a quarterback that's not so fragile, I might try to, adjust and make that move instead. Because Taylor's got value for sure.
Yeah, he does. Tyreek Hill. I'd take Tyreek Hill plus another receiver. If you can get maybe like a wide receiver, 2 flex receiver. You know who I bet you could get? I bet you could get Cedric Tillman.
He's a great play this week. And if Winston plays, a great, just moving forward type guy.
I have a feeling Tillman's going to see way more targets than we're really thinking. But who knows? But for right now, yes, make that deal. Try and get Cedric Tillman in that deal as well. Charlene Erickson.
Charlene.
What is up? Thanks for tuning in. My receivers are in dire shape. She's starting McLaurin, but she needs 2 more. Debo, if he plays, Cedric Tillman, Tim Patrick, and Calvin Ridley. She's got Ridley in her flex, but she could also put Laporta there. Hunter Henry is in at tight end. Okay, so with Ridley, is Levis playing this week, or is it Mason Rudolph? Do we know yet?
I would rather have Tillman no matter who the answer to that question is.
Well, yeah, Tillman
over Ridley. I just I can't trust the Titans offense. Like I got burned by Pollard last week. Like he really hurt a very good DFS day when I thought for sure they could just do something. It's such a bad offense. And I'm with you. Like Jameis, again, the Ravens we know are going to score 30, 40 points. That's all they do. Yep. Jameis likes to fling it anyway. Like, I think on the low side, Tillman's going to get at least 6 to 7 targets. I mean, he got 10 with Deshaun and, DTR playing most of the game last week. The one that's interesting to me is Laporta, because with Williams out, I do think that they're going to try to get him more involved this week. And, that's what he was kind of known for. He's one of those rare tight ends that he had a lot of plays of like 20, 30 yards or more. So I think that's what I would do is play Tillman. Obviously, if Debo's healthy, that changes this, but I would play Tillman, and then put Laporta in the flex. And then obviously if Debo plays, I'd just play Tillman, Debo, and I'd stay with Henry at tight end.
Okay, so she also says here she could pick up Troy Franklin.
I mean, I'd like to have Franklin the rest of the year for sure, right? I don't know if I'd rather have him than Tillman this week. What do you think?
No, but I would drop Calvin Ridley and pick him up.
Yep, I would too.
Yeah. It might be more of a long-term move, maybe not for this week, but or you toss him in your flex, roll out Laporta and Tillman.
Because remember, they played, ball together in college. Like that was part of why any best ball draft, I took Bo Nix, I took Franklin, just thinking, they have connection.
Oh, it's a good. I did the same. Yeah. I did the same thing. MVM wants to know who they should start here: Romeo Doubs, Xavier Worthy, Jalen McMillan. Pick two of those, then also Kelsey or Ferguson. I'm going to Kelsey over Ferguson, especially given the wide receiver situation right now. And we've seen him start to pick up some more volume. He was tight end 3, I believe, last week.
I think Ferguson's droppable at this point. Like, I think there's actually better tight end options out there than Ferguson.
I agree. Which isn't super surprising, I suppose. Now I need to, okay. So Dobbs, Worthy, or McMillan here.
Again, I'm really a big believer in McMillan, so that's why I would say him. But if you're going for this, I mean, honestly, even the safe play, like Worthy's so boomer bust, and Dobbs is, again, Packer wide receiver. Good luck. I think it's just McMillan. He's going to get volume this week. Yeah, and Atlanta gives up a lot of big plays, which, if you need reminding, his first catch of the season was like a 25-yard touchdown. So,
hey everybody, it's Fresh Cut Herbs.
Dude, what's up, dude? Looking
hopping
sharp
into the show. You were much fluffier than that last night.
That is last week for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like, I don't know, because so now that I hooked up my Twitter account to the Optimus so that it broadcasts to, the audience and everything, I noticed that it was going on, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm going to show up.
Hey, you're always welcome. Who are you starting out of these? What two are you starting out of these 3 receivers? We got Dobbs, Worthy, and Jalen McMillan.
I just did my re-rank of my weekly rankings, and I have McMillan like wide receiver 40 something, like way ahead of consensus, because he played a ton of slot at Washington. Like, Chris Godwin being out elevates him into a role that he's kind of like designed for as a player. So I'm just going for it. Like, it's one of those big swings that I'm like really afraid to be wrong about. But at the same time, like,
it's the Falcons, bro. I'm a Falcons expert as a fan. You ain't got to worry about much. Like, Baker and that offense is still going to eat. I promise. We can't get pressure. Like, that's the issue.
I've got him at wide receiver 45. So I'm kind of right there with you.
All right, let's go. Look at us. Look at us.
Our rankings are really similar sometimes. It's kind of creepy. It's almost like we rank for each other. We're going to move on here to Tron Force over there on YouTube. Jaden Daniels has been his quarterback all year. Picked up Tua and placed him in my IR spot in case he misses. I'm thinking about holding Tua for rest of season. Would you drop Braylon to hold Tua? Assuming Braylon Allen, the way that this offense is shifting in New York, I think Braylon Allen's usefulness in fantasy for this season is probably over. Herms, do you agree with me?
I would probably say that's a fair statement. I'm kind of vamping a little bit so I can dig into the numbers real quick, because shout out our friends over at Fantasy Points Data. They always have just the coolest things going on in terms of being able to tell us things like these, their bell cow report, which I finally have filtered so I can give my answer. Look at that. So
vamp a little bit more, my friend.
Of course. No, but ever since Todd Downing took over as offensive coordinator and like play caller in New York over those past couple games, Braylon Allen has been out there on 14% of snaps and has received 13.9% of the carries. It's not happening. This concept that they were going to be some sort of fun duo or have it be some sort of committee, I don't think is going to work out. It's not really an indictment on Braylon Allen as a player. We've seen him do well in spurts this season, but yeah, you're going to get way more value out of a starting quarterback than you will a running back who's not going to see the field unless of injury.
Part of why Robert Saleh is no longer there, because it's like, bro, get the ball to your guys. The other thing I just want to add is, like, with Daniels, Washington is going to be very careful, and they should be. They're sitting in the driver's seat for the 2 seed. They're probably the 3 best teams in the NFC, are all in the same division. So only one of them can get that number 1 seed, and the rest of them, the best they can do is 5. And so if Daniel say sits for a few weeks, you got Arizona. Buffalo's not the easiest matchup, but then the Rams, Raiders, and Patriots. So if he say misses 3-4 games, you got Tua, who, by the way, put up almost a 20 burger in his only full start this year, and a lot of really good matchups. So I definitely would do that.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. Braylon Allen is toast, unfortunately, for this season. Jesse over there on YouTube wants to know, would you rather start Njoku or Cade Otton this week? Keith, let's start with you.
Wow, this is the kind of questions that you have to love. I would go Njoku just because I think he's the number 1 weapon week in and week out in this Browns offense. I mean, he saw 14 targets in the first game without Amari Cooper. And again, I think the Ravens are going to score a ton of points. And we've seen Baltimore's secondary is not great, and Njoku's almost treated more as a wide receiver. I love Cade Otton this week, but if he got 14 targets, I'd be like, oh my God, he got 14 targets. If Njoku gets 14 targets, I go, oh yeah, he got 14 last week. That's not that surprising.
Yeah, I have Njoku higher in my tight end rankings. That's where I'd go. Herms, how about you?
I mean, we talk about what's going to happen with the Browns and who's going to be the most interesting pass catcher. Is it going to be Cedric Tillman? Is Jerry Jeudy going to have a chance to elevate? And all these things are fun things to ponder, but the real answer is David Njoku, because he occupied such a hefty target share in the offense last year. He's demonstrated he can be the go-to reliable guy for an offense, which is not something that a lot of tight ends can really say about themselves, both in real life and for fantasy purposes. So you always go with the guy that is going to be the undisputed leader. Even with these injuries in Tampa, it's not like Cade Otton's all of a sudden just going to turn into Travis Kelce or something.
Yep. He's not that kind of athlete. Yeah.
No, I've got Njoku at tight end 3, which is only 1 ahead of consensus. So I suppose it's not that crazy. We're going to
don't forget too what he did with Flacco last year. And Jameis to me is the kind of QB that can really unleash him. And I mean, he had an unreal run when Flacco first starting last year.
Yeah, we just needed Njoku to be healthy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's really all. And then he's good. Tron Force saying Tyreek is questionable going into Sunday with a foot injury. I did see that. He's playing.
He's telling you to fire him up, man. So, Tyreek's not worried about it. I'm not worried about it.
Right. We've got Aldo Gaviaria over here on YouTube. I think I said that right. Bijan for Olave and McBride in full PPR. I get the Olave side. Their other running backs are Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry. Current tight end is Dalton Kincaid. I think I'm okay. His running backs are Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry. I don't love moving Bijan, but when you need a tight end, then you can get Chris Olave as a bonus back. I don't hate this move. Herms, how do you feel about it?
I'd probably ask for McBride and someone besides Olave, but I mean, you're giving up the best player in the deal, but the gap between Bijan and McBride just adjusting for positional value and everything really isn't all that bad. So, I mean, I don't know.
Tight end, though, is such a waste. McBride's got, 1 touchdown this year? And I'm telling you, Bijan is starting to get going. It's a foul. They made a point 3 weeks ago to say we got to get him the ball, and they have. Since then, they've been using them in different ways. Again, I understand the McBride part, but I completely agree that it's look, dude, I got to get something a little better than Olave in that Saints offense, which think about how bad it's been for the last month. I would have to get a different wide receiver to be able to accept that, even with having Henry and Kyron, or I'd try to go get Bowers potentially and, another wide receiver, something like that.
Herms, do you think Bowers is off the table straight up for Bijan?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you could,
unless you're loaded at back. I think anybody would want to get Bijan, right? And most people have Bowers had another tight, I know for me in all my leagues, he was my second tight end. I took in most of them.
Yeah, me too. The few 2 places I got him. We've got another one here. MVM wants to know, should they drop Jake Ferguson and pick up Tillman off of waivers? I mean, I don't think there's any real value to Jake Ferguson at this point. There are better tight ends out there you can stream, so I would do it. Herms, would you do it?
If only because he's like the second option in the Cowboys passing game. Like I'd maybe want to keep it. I would like to know who your other tight end is, though, because if you're asking if you can drop Ferguson, I'm presuming that you have another one.
Yeah.
So assuming the other
Yeah,
person's
same.
good and you want to take the flyer on Tillman, like in that
I would rather
scenario,
have
like,
Jatavian
sure.
Sanders right now than Jake
Yes.
Ferguson, though. So I mean, and I
Get
guarantee
Jatavian
he's
Sanders.
and I guarantee he's available, probably in your league.
Oh,
So-
he's widely okay. So though, either get Tillman or get Jatavian Sanders. Charlene Erickson, this league, guys, is faring better than the other one she just asked us about. She does need 2 wide receivers and 2 flexes out of this group. Jalen McMillan, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas Jr., Devonta Smith, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Tyrone Tracy, and Muth. Herms.
Am I an idiot? Who is Muth? Farmuth?
Farmuth.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Sorry. All right.
We're Yinzers.
Yeah, I'm old.
This one's tough, man.
Who's the definite for you guys? Because for me, it's BTJ. Is like you got to play him. There's a lot of metrics that show that is where you can attack this defense. Is on the kind of routes that he runs, and he's just been cooking here lately. That's where then it gets really hard for me. That's where I was gonna say is I would guess say Devontae, but again, Miami secondary ain't great either. I know it looks like by the fantasy numbers, just because I don't think they're giving up any touchdowns, and some of the teams they played have been, offenses that can't throw for more than like 150 yards. But I probably would lean Devontae too.
Yeah, I think for me it's BTJ and Devontae in the wide receiver spot, and then we're flexing
she needs
here.
A flex too. Shit,
2 flexes. I would go probably Harrison and Muth or Tracy and Muth.
I like Wan'Dale with the Giants pass, because right now Thomas out, they're gonna have no time, and that's really good for one. I mean, who would have thought Wan'Dale Robinson is second in the NFL in targets? And with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams joining the Jets, there's a very good chance he ends up leading the league in targets this year because he's only 8 behind Garrett Wilson. So again, volume for me matters in that situation. He would be one of the flexes, and then I just pick whichever person I think is most likely to have a big game for the other.
I just realized that the Giants are playing the Steelers, so never mind on Tyrone Tracy. Wan'Dale or Muth, I think either or I'd be happy with here.
So no Marvin Harrison for either of you. I get it.
I mentioned that the Dolphins secondary is not as good as the numbers, but he does scare me. I worry about there's 2 things. I worry about the consistency that we've seen from him. Kyler Murray saying it's not my job to feed him targets, and Call of Duty came out today. So, I mean, that's a 3-burger. What's really scary is Murray typically actually goes the opposite way as the season goes on. And since it's already rough, I'm like, is it going to get terrible by the end of the year for him?
Maybe the Call of Duty will snap his brain back into thinking.
I hope so.
I don't know.
Because Matthew Berry whiffed on his one sure thing, which was Kyler Murray, at least thus far.
This is a hard industry, man.
It is, but when you're going to tout everywhere,
but I get it.
It's always right. I always get this play right because I end up taking Kyler Murray late in drafts because I read that and I'm like, well, he has been right the last 3 years. I ranked him
QB5. I was also pretty aggressive on it too. So if we're going to be handing out L's, I'll give myself one. Here
we go.
Oh, I take
all right.
L. I'm just saying.
KJ Frederick guys wants to know. KJ wants to know here. He's got J.K. Dobbins, and he has Kamani Vidal as a handcuff because of the injury history. Is smart. Should I drop Vidal for Taysom Hill as a bench stash? Currently have Otten as my tight end for this week. This is full PPR. I wouldn't do that.
You can't. Because with Dobbins' history, dude, the second you do that, I know if it was me, he would be done for the year, and you just lost a running back. Again, not just a running back, an offense that is going to run the ball as much as any in the NFL.
It's a Greg Roman offense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's even a better way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. Herms, would you do it?
No, I would not.
All right. Well, KJ, by the way, thanks for breaking the Josh Reynolds news for us yesterday. I looked into that story and
it's awful, man. God, it's awful.
Yeah, I've been to that strip club.
Have you
weird.
really?
Oh, dude, I live in Denver. I'm 42. I've been a lot of places around here. That's a really interesting area for that to have gone down because it's one of
Well,
the
that's what I'm saying.
busiest parts of Denver.
Well, that's what like I was reading was it would be like almost like it happening in Buckhead for Atlanta, which it's like kind of a little bit more, high rent area where it's like, what is going on?
It's a nice place.
That's not far. That's not far. Where that happened is not far from where most of the players reside in Cherry Hills.
That's
so it's only a couple miles from.
Crazy.
That's a very high end area. We used to live over there, not in the high end part, but Jesse here on YouTube is trading Marvin Harrison Jr. and Tank Dell for Devin A-Chain good. Yes, it is. That is very good.
10th best season of all time is what he's averaging with 10 carries with Tua right now. Like I know it's a small sample, but he's gonna be really good.
It's about to get a lot bigger.
Yep.
Plain and simple. This is our last question here, guys, and we are going to get out of here and let you get to your Friday nights. Trone Force, 2-5, needs to make a run starting this week. Yes, you do. Hopefully we can help. Any suggestions, trade, etc. This is full PPR. He's got Jaden Daniels, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Saquon Barkley, David Montgomery, David Njoku, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins, JSN, Darnell Mooney, Raheem Mostert, Alexander Madison, and Tua. That's just a lot of bad luck. You're getting the value of Tyreek and Kupp back. We saw Kupp's already. He played well last night, got the touchdown.
And Tua, for that matter,
Yeah, right. And Tua's about to start again. Mooney's got a good matchup this week. The D-Hop's in a new situation. Yeah. Give it a week.
I might wait. This is a team that in 2 weeks you could be going, wow, my roster's loaded. To your point, because just like it's kind of flipped for so many of these guys. Not to mention, hey, Madison, if it's full PPR, dude. Madison's all of a sudden like a viable running back week in and week out with his volume in the pass game. Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He said, I told you this was the last question. And he's out here. I didn't know he was just going to leave without saying bye, but
Well, I can chime in real quick with my little perspective before I may have to say something in the terms of goodbye to the viewers. I don't know. I guess I'm the host now. What up? What I would do though, any suggestions, especially with the whole trade component you asked about Trone Force, I would look at sort of the back end of what you're looking at with like D-Hop and a guy like Alexander Madison, who's kind of taken over that role in Las Vegas there, and see what you could do to maybe package that together and then, kind of solidifying the end of your bench and paring it down and just consolidating talent is always a good move, whether we're talking about redraft or dynasty. And I think with where your direction is kind of headed, you do have to just consolidate and try to push for, turning 2 or 3 really good players into one super good player. So I would look at guys like D-Hop, Mooney, Madison, kind of on the end of your bench, throw them together, shoot them out there for like one
Otherwise,
really
you're
good guy.
Stressing yourself out week in and week out, right? Where it's like, oh my God, who do I start? Then you always make the wrong decision, which I do,
Yeah, limit the choices of the decisions that you need to make. That will make it infinitely easier for you, Trone Force.
Completely agree.
Well, thanks for covering me there. My headphones just turned themselves off.
We thought you just were like, we're out of here. I said it was the last question. I'm gone.
No. This really is the last question, though. KJ Frederick with one more. Which QB would y'all rank higher the rest of the season? Tua or Matt Stafford?
Question.
Oh, boy. Full PPR doesn't really matter when it comes to quarterbacks. That is a really good question. If Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua can stay healthy rest of season, same with Kyron Williams, I think it's Matt Stafford for me.
I mean, if it's like a question where he's asking which would, like he have or whatever, if you have one of their pass catchers, like if I had Tyreek or, Kupp or whatever, that would be my answer, obviously. But if I had to lean, I actually think it's the Dolphins. I think this offense is going to surprise people. There is a lot of talent. All those guys are healthy. And Tua, it's kind of like what I said with my boy J.K. Dobbins. He's due some luck with health. So I'm hoping he's going to stay healthy and the Dolphins are going to roll because I definitely don't want him to take another concussion this year.
No, nobody does. Tua's a great player. I'm not super excited to see him playing again, not because I don't love watching him play, because I do. I just don't want to see him get hurt. He's got a whole life outside of football. He's got kids and a wife and a family, and nothing's worth all of that. But on a happier note, guys, we are headed into week 8 of fantasy football. There is football, college ball tomorrow. Got some great games. If you're wondering how to watch any of them, check out Tom's guide. I write some how to watch stuff over there. Shameless plug. But
also link. Hockey.
Yes, there's hockey this weekend. We've got NBA this weekend. We've got
Let's go Hawks.
World Series baseball tonight. What more could you want? Well, I'll tell you what, I would love for you guys to show up Tuesday with Mike Reedy and myself for the Waiver Wire Show, 6 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday. We have got everything that you need to win the week. And then the last thing we'll do this week, we've got our Reddit AMA Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll roll right up until kickoff answering all your questions. Head over to Reddit, r/fantasy football. It's the most poppin' subreddit in all of Reddit. I do believe it was the busiest again in September, and I think we're still waiting on October numbers. But if you love fantasy football, get over there. It's a great time. That's awesome. I want to thank Herms for hopping in here at the last minute. That was great. Keith, I want to thank you again for hopping in pretty last minute to join me to host this show. It's always great to have you. Absolutely. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in. We always appreciate you watching, subscribing, and liking. Please make sure you subscribe if you watched us today. We would greatly appreciate it. It helps us continue to bring you this content all season long. 200 more subs, guys, and we get to go to some fun premium after dark stuff. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about where to distribute your subs. I am Nate Paulvote for CH Herms and Keith Fleming. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next time.